Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I hope you're having a great day. My name is Eric. Thanks for joining us. On today's episode, we're going to be making a duck salami. Now, on this channel, we've done duck prosciutto before, and it turned out incredible. But making a salami requires a few extra steps, and a whole lot more can go wrong. And so I've never made a duck salami, so this will be a first, and I can't wait to make it with you guys. At the end of this video, we're going to taste it and see how it came out. Let's make duck salami.
For this salami, we're going to use duck breasts. We're going to use a little bit of some pork back fat, and then we're going to use some lean pork. Now, I like the combination of duck meat with pork meat. I think that it offers a nice balance, and so I think it'll work well in this salami. And the other thing that I had to consider was the duck fat. All I could get my hands on was the skin from the duck breasts, and as soon as you grind that, it actually has a very low melting point. So I'm going to save that duck fat for something completely different, and we're going to replace that with pork back fat. And we're just going to process the meat into small cubes for our grinder. As soon as we're done, we're going to take all of that and place it into the freezer before we grind it. And in the description box below, you'll find a detailed recipe with all the ingredients, adjustable quantities, everything you need to know on how to make this duck salami at home. And one thing I want to mention is that if you want to make this a 100% duck salami, you can totally do that. Just know that the flavor of your duck is obviously going to be much stronger. Depending on where you get your duck, it may be slightly gamey, and because duck fat tends to melt at a lower melting point, it may be a little bit greasier, but it will still be delicious. So there's our ingredients. That's going to go in the freezer. Okay, we're going to start off with some salt and a little white pepper. We're now going to come back with some turbinado sugar. That's just basically sugar in the raw. We're now going to add a little clove and a little nutmeg. I think that's going to give it a very nice flavor. We've got Insta-Cure #1. This salami is only going to take about 30 days. We've got ground fennel powder and some garlic powder. And then I'm going to add just a touch of dextrose. That's the sugar to feed the starter culture. And speaking of starter culture, we're going to be using the Flavor of Italy. I like this starter culture. It's predictable. It produces great results. If you're just getting started into salami making, this is a great culture to use because it's incredibly fast and you can literally just ferment your salami on your countertop. And so you don't need to do anything special, as you'll see here in a minute. So we're just going to rehydrate that for about a half an hour. Now remember, our meat is in the freezer, it's doing its thing, it's getting cold, and as soon as it's semi-frozen, we're going to go ahead and start to grind this on our number 12 meat grinder from the sausage maker. Now you've seen this pop up through the series. It's a relatively new grinder for us, and so we've been playing with it for a little bit. I've got a variable speed, it's got the reverse function. We are grinding this on the 6mm plate, and if you want to do a more coarse grind, you can absolutely do that. So this is what our meat looks like now that we're finished. Our meat is still cold, so we don't need to re-chill it, but if during the grinding process, the meat's temperature has risen too much, you definitely want to re-chill it. I mean, you want this in the mid-30s. As you start to mix it, and it looks like we're in the low 30s, which is even better. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and mix all of our ingredients together, and that's going to be the spices and the starter culture, and we're going to mix that until it's nice and sticky. If you grab a little handful, it'll stick to your hand if you turn it upside down, at which point we're going to pop it into a casing. Our meat is nice and sticky, and just a little word of advice, if you're using something like a KitchenAid or a stand mixer, mix it on low. It's incredibly easy to overmix, with an orbital mixer. Now it's time to stuff our meat into the casing. We're using a small diameter hog casing, and this small diameter is going to be ready in 3 to 4 weeks, which is why we used cure number 1 in the recipe. If you want to use a larger diameter casing, let's say 40, 50, or 60 millimeter, you're going to want to use cure number 2 instead, because those are obviously going to take a lot longer. So here's what was left in our hopper. We're just going to wrap that in a little cellophane, because that's what we're going to use to test the pH of our meat after fermentation. Next, what we're going to do is weigh our salami and then record the actual weight. That's this weight here. And then I'm going to record the target weight. And for me, I like to target a 35% weight loss. So as soon as this salami hits 241 grams, it's ready to eat. Finally, we're going to go ahead and prick our salami. This just ensures that there's no air pockets and that our casing is properly bound to the meat itself. And now it's time to ferment. So let me show you what we're going to do to ferment. I want my salami sticks to be relatively straight. So I'm going to kind of arrange them on a piece of cling film to where they're straight. And then I'm going to wrap that cling film around those salami sticks. Now, in order to properly ferment a salami, you really need two things. You need a high humidity environment and you need the proper temperature. By wrapping our salami in this cling film, we're in essence trapping the moisture inside that cling film. So that's going to give us the high humid environment. The next thing we need is temperature. And fortunately for me, inside my kitchen is about 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a perfect temperature to ferment this salami. So I am literally going to leave that salami exactly where you see it overnight. We're going to ferment that for 18 to 24 hours. The target temperature is 75 to 85 Fahrenheit or 24 to 29 Celsius with that 90% humidity. And we're going to target a pH of 4.9 to 5.2. If your home is relatively cool, you can always take that salami, place it in the oven with just the light on, and that should give you the right fermentation temperatures for this particular starter culture. It's now the next day. It's been fermenting for about 18 hours, and we're going to test the pH. I'm using a pH meter by a pair of instruments. Incredibly easy to use. We just turn it on and stick it in the meat and then wait for the reading. And remember, we're looking for anything between 4.9 and 5.2, and it looks like our pH is 5.01, and I am absolutely pleased with that. So that means we can now start the drying process. So we're going to take our salami out of that little package and we're going to transfer it into its drying room. Now for me, I have a modified refrigerator where we dry our salami. But if you have a basement or a cellar where the temperature and the humidity are pretty constant, you can hang the salami in there and it will dry perfectly. If you want to know how I built this drying chamber, at the end of this video, I'll make it one of the video suggestions. So just check that out. And if you have any questions, let me know. It is advisable to add mold to your salami. That's going to prevent bad molds from growing. And so what I'm going to do is a form of backslopping by simply rubbing my hand on an existing salami with mold on it and then rubbing the duck salami with it. And that's going to be sufficient enough to inoculate that duck salami with good mold. Now, alternatively, you can always buy a fresh packet of that mold culture and then just apply it to your salami as soon as you put it into your chamber. So this is going to hang in an area that averages 55 degrees Fahrenheit or 13 Celsius and an 80% humidity. Now, in my case, it's a dedicated drying chamber, but for you, it could be a basement, it could be a cellar, it could be a cave, whatever. And we're going to target a weight loss of 35%. It's been roughly about 4 weeks. And the salami looks great. We had nice mold coverage. We had none of the unwanted molds that sometimes will grow on salami. And as I'm looking at this, they feel nice and firm. And so I think it's time to go ahead and give one a cut and see what it's like.
let's try the duck salami. And I gotta tell you, just looking at it, I love the way this came out. You've got beautiful marbling. It dried evenly all the way throughout. You've got the different, duck and pork pieces that have their own unique muscle color, which gives this kind of like a neat stained glass effect. We had nice mold coverage on the outside, which is going to give it a nice mushroomy, slightly earthy element. And a lot of folks ask whether or not the casing is edible or whether or not the mold is edible. And the answer is yes. The mold is completely edible, much like the camembert or blue cheese or brie, same family. And if you use small diameter hog casing or sheep casing, it is totally edible. But you can take it off if you want. So I'm not going to take it off. So let's go ahead and give this a little taste and see how it turned out. Wow. You kind of want to just let it take you. I mean, it's like a symphony of flavors. You've got that bold duck coming in at the front end, and then the sweetness of the pork hovering around, just balancing it all around. The fat is incredibly creamy. I mean, it just coats your mouth. It literally just melts right onto your mouth when you take a bite of it. Ooh. Woo! That is seriously out of control. You take a bite, and then the experience starts to happen. The blooming of this salami on your tongue begins to unravel the different layers of flavor, one after another, after another, after every little bite. It gets more complex until you're just completely engulfed in this absolutely fantastic salami that I hope you get a chance to make. If you have any questions on how to make this duck salami, leave them in the comment section below. And if you found this video entertaining or helpful in any way, a thumbs up would be greatly appreciated. If you're new here and you're interested in sausage making or salami making, be sure to click that subscribe button and that notification bell. We're in the middle of posting up a new video every day through the month of October, and I don't want you to miss a single upload. If you ever have any questions or problems in your sausage or salami making journey, know you can count on me. Just reach out. I'm here to help. Thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.